Hey guys, hello and welcome. S&E's Garage. Stefan here with you. Today we're here with our 2001 Jeep Cherokee, and we're having a problem with this thing where after it runs 15-20 minutes, we get a check gauges light and battery voltage drops. So if you look back in my videos, I'll drop a link down in the description. I do have a video of testing your charging and starting system, and this alternator failed that test. It was not testing up to snuff. And on top of that, the alternator is rather noisy. Let me fire it up, I'll show you. So I think the bearings in the alternator are actually shot and it overheats and stops charging. So let me fire it up real quick. This always happens when I want to show you guys something that won't start. Tighten these cables real quick. There we go. And if you hear it, that alternator's screaming. So it's due for replacement. So what we have to replace it is a CarQuest aftermarket. I don't know if it's remanufactured or not. Yeah, it's remanufactured, but it comes with a lifetime warranty from Advanced Auto. So we got this guy, we're going to put this in, we're going to pull the old one out, we're going to show you exactly how to do it. So first and foremost, anytime you're doing any type of electrical system repairs, disconnect the battery. We're going to take this one completely out because it is in our way. So we're going to pull this battery out, get it out of our way, like so. And our alternator is going to be right down here under this battery tray. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull this battery tray out, and we're going to go over here by the electric fan. That's where our tensioner is. Our tensioner is right here. So we're going to loosen that lock nut, and then we're going to loosen this right here, until we have some slack on this belt. We're going to pull the belt off of the alternator, and the alternator only, because I'm not replacing the belt. And we're going to start pulling the alternator out. Stay tuned. Let me get this battery tray out, show you exactly what we're working with here. So this battery tray is going to be held in with 3 15mm nuts. And depending on the year, make, and model of your Jeep, there's going to be a little battery temperature sensor mounted up underneath of this. So when you do go to pull it out, just make sure you don't rip that wire. Just unplug it so you don't damage it. So I'm going to get some PB Blaster, spray these 15mm nuts down. We're going to work them loose, get this battery tray up and out of our way. My son and my fiance are out on the back deck enjoying this beautiful weather with us today. Let me show you. Hey, Em. Say hi to YouTube. Say hi. This is Emily. I'm Stefan. That's Emily, aka S&E's Garage. We have our little boy Maverick, 14 months old, hanging out on the deck with us. We actually bought this Jeep so he can experience, you know, some fun stuff out in the woods and trail riding and things like that. And I figured it would make some pretty good content for YouTube, so here we are. But like I said, we're just going to start getting these nuts loose for this battery tray. Now these are usually rusted pretty good, especially if you're from the Salt Belt, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, you know, East Coast, that kind of thing. So this one actually wasn't too bad, but I always recommend soaking these in PB Blaster before you just go and take them out, because they do have a tendency to break. These have been actually coming out pretty good, so hopefully we have good luck with this one and it doesn't fight us too much. Now, I don't have any of my power tools with me. I leave them all at work. So we're doing it just as if you guys would be doing it at your house, in your garage, with no power tools. So we got those 3 nuts I was telling you about out. We're going to pull this up and out. And like I said, under here is our battery temperature sensor. We're just going to unplug that on the firewall side. Or not the firewall side, sorry, by the fender. And get it up and out of our way. So I am going to show you real quick. This is the connector for it right here, and it's plugged in right here on the fender. So that is out of the way. And we're just going to take these 3 nuts, place them in here, put this aside. So now, if you see, we have a straight shot at our alternator. That's it there. So our next step is going to be to unplug the connector to the alternator, and we're also going to disconnect the power wire going to it. There is no ground wire. It's grounded through the engine block. So make sure you check your your chassis grounds and your ground straps. There's one right back here on the firewall. Right here. This is a ground strap here that helps ground the engine to the chassis. So you're always going to want to check that when you have a charging system concern. This one was okay, and like I said, the alternator is just making noise, so it's time to replace it either way. So, like I said, let's get that power wire off, let's get the connector going into it out, and then we're going to start working on the tensioner side of this belt. So the hot wire going into the alternator is a 10mm nut. So we're just going to get down here like so, and we're going to break this nut loose. We're going to see if we can get it out by hand the rest of the way, because this ratchet's a little cumbersome. But this Jeep has been in the woods before. I bought it knowing that it has already been wheeled, so I don't have to feel bad about ruining a clean one, because we are, for all intents and purposes, going to be beating the hell out of this thing. So we got that off, and now we just have to work on this electrical connector, which, like I said, this has been in the woods before, so it is probably going to fight me. So let me get that off and we'll go from there. Alright guys, so real quick, let me just show you where we're at here. We have our alternator completely disconnected. Here's the positive lead, and over here is the connector for it. I did have to spray it out with some electrical contact cleaner because it was a little muddy. Like I said, Jeep has been in the woods. So the next thing we're going to do is take this electric cooling fan out, because it is blocking our tensioner. Usually you have 2 8mm bolts, one here and one here. This one, the bolts are missing on one side, which is super common, and they're zip tied. So I'm going to cut that zip tie. I'm going to pull this 8mm bolt out, and I'm going to unplug the fan. We're going to pull it right out of the way. Got our electric fan out of the way. We're going to loosen this jam nut here, 15mm, and then we're going to start loosening the tensioner, take some tension off this belt. So we went ahead and loosened the tensioner. Like I said, you got a 15mm jam nut here, and then this is also a 15, which spins like a worm gear style tensioner. So we pulled the belt off of this pulley here, which is the tensioner pulley, which gave us enough slack to pull the belt off of the alternator. You can see the pulley right there is by itself. So now we're going to work on getting the alternator out. I see one bolt up here. That's probably going to be a 15 or so. That's that guy right there. And then I'm pretty sure there's a couple underneath. It's been a little while since I've done one of these. But yeah, we got 2 here. Also looks like maybe a 15 and a 15. And then it should come free of the bracket. So let's start working on that and work on getting this thing out. Stay tuned. So this one here is a 15. Now there's a bolt that goes all the way through the bracket, and it's spinning on the other side. That also looks like a 15, so you're going to want to use another wrench to hold that while you ratchet the nut off of the bolt. We got this 15mm nut and bolt out. That was up top. So now we're going to get down to the bottom, and I'm going to take those other 2 out that I showed you. Now I'm thinking that we're going to have to pull this alternator out from the bottom, just due to the fact that I have 2 air conditioning lines right here. I don't think it's going to fit. We might have to take the bracket off on the front of the engine. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've done one of these. So let's get those 2 nuts and bolts off of the bottom, and we'll go from there. Alright guys, so we got our alternator loose. We slipped it out of this bracket here. And let's go down underneath. I'll show you what I got here. I got these 2 bolts out as well. There and there. So now we just have to try to figure out our best bet here to getting this alternator out, whether it's from the top or the bottom. Like I said, I may have to take this bracket out. Looks like it's got 3 nuts here, so we might have to try that. But let's see what we can figure out without taking them off first. Work smarter, not harder. Alright guys, so I just kind of want to show you what I got going on here. I was able to remove these 2 nuts on this bracket here and here, and then loosen the 3rd nut so that the bracket moves. So this one's off, this one's loose, and it allowed me to slip the alternator out of here, shift it backwards, and pull it out straight through the bottom in this big gap here. So that's going to be your best bet. So we have our old alternator here, and we can see, like I said, this Jeep was in the woods before, so this thing must have been damn near almost underwater at some point. There's a ton of play in this bearing, and if you spin it after this plane finishes flying overhead. There's Chica. Hey Chica! Chica! Hey baby! Oh, there goes your water! So if we spin this, you can hear that, you know, it's not happy. We got, like I said, a ton of play in here. This one spins nice and free. So we're just gonna wanna line these up, make sure our bolt holes all match. We're gonna look at the back of this, make sure our connectors are in the same spot, and this all does look correct. So this alternator is a remanufactured. It does have a core charge. So we're gonna throw this in the car, put it in the box, and we're gonna bring it back, get our money from that, and we're gonna start putting this new alternator in. Now when you do replace your alternator, if your battery is newer, you are gonna wanna charge it, make sure it's fully charged. The last thing you wanna do is stress a brand new alternator by having to bring a dead battery back up to charge. In this case, I just replaced the battery. I didn't see a date code on the old one. I wasn't sure when it was replaced last. So this is a Walmart battery. You can see it was manufactured in May of 21, so it is only 1 month old. And it is fully charged. So let's go ahead, pack this old alternator up, and get this new one ready to go in the truck. Alright guys, so I thought it was kind of important to show you guys kind of how I snuck this thing in here without taking too much apart. Because like I said, work smarter, not harder. And sometimes it's easier if I just show you than explain it to you. So a part of the alternator, excuse me, that goes on the top, oops, is this guy right here with the 2 ears on it. So we're gonna just kind of work this thing up through this hole like so. You know, you're probably gonna have to rotate it and maneuver it around these lines and stuff to make it fit. It is kind of tricky, but I got the old one out this way, so the new one's gonna go in this way, just like that. Okay, we're gonna slide this up and into place, like so. This is going to come like this, over here, and we're just gonna kind of finagle it until it is lined up. This is a little annoying to do on your back, so if you have a lift, more power to you. I do not have access to one at this moment, so we are here, but I'm just gonna struggle with this a little bit more. There we go, and we are basically in. So now we're gonna start our bolts. I'm probably gonna start the one up top first, so it'll have a pivot point, and then I'm gonna work my way down here. Alright, so here's the top of the alternator. We're going to want to slide this bracket over while we move the alternator into place. And I'm also going to get my nut and bolt here ready. It slides in from front to back, so the bolt side goes in from the front. So we're just going to move this into place here, and we're going to begin sliding this into place like so, and then we're going to screw our nut onto the back of it, and then from there we can start our lower bolts. Here we have Mrs. Emily. Say hi, Emily. On her way to feed the chickens. And we still got Chica, the German Shepherd. Chica, hey baby. hanging out with us while we work on this thing, get her some fresh air. So let me get those bolts down below started, and then we can start tightening everything up and reconnecting our power wire and everything else. Alright guys, so we got all of our nuts and bolts we took out of the bottom in. We got this one in, we got this guy here in, and then we got these three on this bracket in. So now we got to go up top. We got to tighten that nut and bolt. We can start plugging our alternator in. Like I said, I cleaned that plug out. Used some electrical contact cleaner and a pick. Cleaned it out real nice. So let's get up top again, finish this job so we can get the hell out of this heat. Same thing up here. We're going to put a 15 mil on the bolt side. We're going to tighten up the nut. Rest that on the fender like that. Make sure this is on tighten. Alright, so that's tight. We're going to take our 10 millimeter here. Going to connect our positive lead to the alternator. Like so. We're going to put our 10 millimeter socket on. Oh, the new one is not a 10, the new one's bigger, it's probably a 12. Let's try 12. And a 12 it was, so the 12 millimeter is in. We're going to put the cap over this to prevent any short circuits, and we are going to plug in our electrical connector to the back of the alternator, and the alternator is now in. So now we can go ahead, slide our belt back on, tighten the tensioner up, put our cooling fan back in, and we can put the battery in. Alright guys, we got our belt back on. We're going to tighten this tensioner up. You don't want to kill it, but you don't want to have too much belt deflection either. There's a fine line on these between belt squeal and knot. So the way I tighten these is you want to be able to spin the belt like this, but you don't want to be able to push on it too much. So you'll want to go to the longest run, which is actually over here. You're not going to be able to see it, but that's basically what I do. You want to tighten it until you can just about spin this like that, but on the longest run of the belt, which, like I said, is from the water pump to the AC compressor on this particular car. A little more. Keep going a little bit. Check that. And that should be good. So now we're going to tighten this lock nut here like this. Nice and tight. We're going to plug our coolant temperature sensor back in. Now we can put our electric cooling fan back in, and it is going to be going back in with zip ties because both of the bolts are broken. So let's get that on, zip tie it, and then we'll get our battery tray and battery back in. Alright guys, I had to take a little break, it was hot out. We got our cooling fan in here, zip tied, good enough. Not really worried about it. We're going to move over to the battery tray now. We're going to get that in, slide the battery in, tighten our terminals, fire the thing up, make sure it runs, and we'll go from there. So let's get that battery tray, plug in the battery temperature sensor, and start hooking it all up. Alright guys, so I got the battery in. My battery terminal actually broke while I was tightening it, so I got to run to the parts store and get one of them. I'll do that when I bring the core back. But for what it's worth, it should still start. Let's fire it up, see if it's any quieter, and make sure this new alternator is charging. That's it, guys. She's charging. Buster's reading right at 14 volts. Please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel. It allows me to buy more vehicles like this and, bring you guys some more exciting content. So we'll see you on the next one.